Hello Year 9, this is your second video on Macbeth for this week. Quick reminder that Macbeth has got all the Thanes at his castle, Banquo has been murdered, and all of a sudden Macbeth imagines seeing the ghost of Banquo in Macbeth's seat. And the important thing to remember here is that only Macbeth can see the ghost. Lady Macbeth can't and none of the Thanes can. So in the previous scene, the lords, when Macbeth starts asking strangely and pointing at the chair, saying, "Can't you see it?" Then the lords say, "Oh, blimey, this is a bit odd. We'd better get out of here." And Lady Macbeth says, "No, no, it's okay. Everything's okay. He's had these fits since he was a child. He'll get over it quickly. Please sit down and get on with your food." So this scene starts with proper stuff. This is Lady Macbeth's response to Macbeth saying, "What? Can't you see it? Look, look, it's there. Look. It's Banquo's ghost." And Lady Macbeth says, "Oh, proper stuff," which means basically, if you see the exclamation, it means what nonsense. There's nothing there. She says, "This is the very painting of your fear," which is a metaphor basically for saying it's all in your mind. Your mind is playing tricks. She says then, "This is the air-drawn dagger which you said led you to Duncan." So she goes back to his previous hallucination. If you remember that, is this a dagger scene? And he thought the dagger was leading him to murder Duncan. So basically she's saying, this is the same hallucination that you said you saw when you saw the dagger. Your mind is unreliable. And then here, sorry, I forgot I've got a cursor. She says, "All these flaws and starts, impostors to true fear, would well become a woman's story at a winter's fire." So the flaws and starts are his hallucinations. She then says, "would well become a woman's story at a winter's fire." So she makes an analogy. An analogy. An analogy in literature is just a comparison. She is comparing Macbeth's fears, Macbeth's hallucinations, to the story told by an old woman standing by a winter's fire. Why a winter's fire, I'm not sure, but she's basically saying your story, your hallucinations are no more convincing than the ramblings of a mad old woman. So there's the comparison again between Macbeth and a woman that Lady Macbeth keeps making in order to challenge his masculinity and his sanity. Then she goes on to say, "Shame itself, why do you make such faces?" So why are you imagining these things? You should be ashamed. So it's that other strategy. She often says you should be ashamed. So attacking his masculinity, but also attacking his kind of belief in his own sanity. Then she says here, "When all's done, you look but on a stool." So when all's said and done, you're just staring at an empty chair. Macbeth says, "Prithee," which, if you remember, going all the way back to when we looked at common Shakespearean terms, means please. So please, look there. You must see it. "Behold," which means look. Look. Lo, it's there. Look at the exclamations as well. They show us how frustrated, how anxious he is becoming. Why can't you see it? I can see it. I can see the ghost. Why can't you see it? And then how say you? This bit here is actually Macbeth speaking to Banquo's ghost. What have you got to say for yourself? Why are you here? And why? What care I? I don't care. I don't care that you're here. So he's speaking to Banquo's ghost. And then he's trying to reassure himself that he doesn't care that Banquo's ghost appears. So the question kind of shows his uncertainty. And then he speaks to the ghost again. Where's the cursor gone? "If thou canst nod, speak too." So we get the impression that Banquo's ghost is nodding, not like the Churchill dog, but almost taunting him. So he's saying, "If you can nod, speak too. Please speak. Tell me why you're here." And then there's this rather complicated 3 lines at the bottom. It says, "If charnel houses and our graves must send those that we bury back, our monuments shall be the moors of kites." So the crucial bit here is, if our graves must send those we bury back. Where's the cursor gone? Oh, there we go. So he's saying here, if the dead are going to return from their graves, what's the point in burying them in the first place? And then Banquo's ghost leaves the stage. Lady Macbeth says, "What? Again? What are you talking about? Quite unmanned in folly." So folly means foolishness, silly. So she's saying, basically, you're being unmanly. Your hallucinations, your behavior is unmanly. So again, challenging his masculinity. The perception here is that a strong man, a strong leader, should be in control of his emotions, not showing such mental weakness and fragility in front of all of these lords. Basically, she's saying, get your act together, man up. And Macbeth is not affected by Lady Macbeth at all. He says, if I stand here, I saw him. So I swear, I saw him. I'm sure I saw him. And the repetition of the concept of shame again. So Lady Macbeth says, fie for shame. Fie is kind of an insult. For shame. So you should be ashamed. So the two ideas here is that his behaviour is unmanly, but it's also unbecoming of a king. He should be ashamed of how he's behaving. So I've got two questions for you on this page, please. I said that Shakespeare makes an analogy to explain the way Macbeth is behaving. Remember, an analogy is a comparison. So what was the analogy? What does Lady Macbeth compare Macbeth to? And secondly, what is Lady Macbeth's response to Macbeth's hallucinations and his behaviour in general? So two questions, please. As always, write them down. That seems to be most of your preferred methods. Or email them and send them to me, please. Okay, on to the next page. Seen this one. So Macbeth at the top here said, blood hath been shed ere now. Ere means before. So there have been murders before now. In the olden time, a human statute purged the gentle wheel. A little bit complicated, this one. So he's saying in the olden days, there were lots of murders because there were no laws to prevent it. So it was a very violent time, a lawless time. But then he says, and since two murders have been performed, too terrible for the ear. So he's saying in the olden times there were lots of murders, but since then there have been murders too, all of them terrible. Then he says, the time has been, where's the cursor gone? The time has been that when the brains were out, the man would die, and there an end. So normally when you beat a man's brains out, like they did to Banquo, although they cut his throat as well, that would be the end of it. He would be dead. And then he says, but now they rise again. And obviously that's what Banquo's doing. He's dead, but he rises again to taunt him with 20 mortal murders on their crowns. That's a metaphor. He doesn't mean murders. Their crown is their head. And he's talking about Banquo's ghosts here. The 20 mortal murders are the 20 wounds that Banquo has on his head. So Banquo has risen again with 20 wounds on his head and pushes from our stalls. So he's there in my throne with the 20 wounds that killed him on his head. And then he says, this is more strange than such a murder is. So this is highly unusual. When you kill a man, it appears he's not dead, and then he appears in your seat at your ceremony with the wounds that killed him right in front of him. So really this is about this recurring theme throughout Macbeth about the reversal of nature, that what is normal on this planet is not normal at this particular time in Macbeth's kingdom. Normally when you kill a man he dies, but there appears to be the normal rules of nature are reversed here. And remember, that's because Macbeth has defied the rules of nature, the divine right of kings. He has stolen Malcolm and Donalbain's divine right to rule. He has reversed God's laws of nature, that only the king decides who is next in line to the throne. Lady Macbeth, as always, plays the role of the good host. She says, this curse is useless. She says, my worthy lord, your noble friends do lack you. Macbeth, your friends are missing you. Macbeth temporarily comes back to his senses. Oh, I'm sorry, I do forget. Oh, this curse is doing my head in. Do not muse at me, my most worthy friend. So don't look at me. Don't wonder about my behaviour, my most worthy friends. I have a strange infirmity which is nothing to those that know me. So I have a disability, an illness, and those that know me know about it and they're not scared by it at all. So, and then he raises a glass, he makes a toast. Come, love and health to all. So he raises a toast saying, love and health to all, then I'll sit down. So join me in the toast, then I'll sit down. Give me some wine, fill full, I drink to the general joy of the whole table. So again, he completes the toast. Have you ever been at weddings and stuff? Do you know what a toast is? It's when you raise, I haven't got a wine glass handy, it's Sunday morning, so I don't have one. So you raise, oh, thank you. Look at that, what a coincidence. You raise a glass, and it's called a toast, and you raise a glass and say, here's to everybody here, here's to good health. So you raise a glass and you say, I hope everyone's okay, basically. So he raises a toast, and then he raises a toast to Banquo, and he says, we miss, so here's a toast to our dear friend Banquo. So he toasts three things. The general joy of the whole of the table, love and health to all, and to Banquo. Would he were here. So if only Banquo was here, we all miss him and we drink to him. And this is obviously dramatic irony, but it's made even more powerful by the fact that Shakespeare deliberately has the ghost of Banquo reappear as Macbeth is raising his glass to toast Banquo. So that emphasises the dramatic irony that Macbeth knows full well that he's responsible for the death of Banquo, but he has the cheek to raise a toast to Banquo. So Macbeth here is going between falling apart at his hallucination, but at the same time having the control and cheek to actually raise a toast to the man he's arranged to have murdered. Then Macbeth sees the ghost and he says, avaunt, which means away, get out of my eyesight. Let the earth hide thee. So there's a lovely metaphor there. Let the earth hide thee. Get back to your grave. And then Macbeth here, if that cursor behaves, explains three ways. He's speaking to Banquo here, and he's trying to explain 1, 2, 3 ways that Banquo is not real. Banquo is not alive. Thy bones are marrowless. So there's no marrow in your bones. The thing that keeps bones alive is not real. Your blood is cold. You're just dead. You're not alive. You don't have warm blood flowing through your veins. And thou has no speculation in those eyes. So your eyes are dead. There's nothing in your eyes that you can use to look at me because you're dead. So he's trying to convince himself that it's a vision, that this is not Banquo come back to life. And it's important to remember how the Elizabethans and the Jacobeans believe strongly in the supernatural here. So, it might well be that he's convinced that in some way Banquo has been brought back to life to haunt him. But here he's trying to convince himself, no, you're dead. It's just a hallucination. And at the bottom line here, Lady Macbeth again trying to get everything back together. So reminds the audience, think of this, good peers, but a thing of custom. So it's just strange behaviour. It's normal for Macbeth, this strange behaviour. Think nothing of it, only it spoils the pleasure of the time. Don't let it spoil your pleasure. So 2 questions here, please. I'm being nice to you. These are such easy questions. Question number 1. How does Macbeth explain his strange behaviour to the Thanes? Pause and answer, or move on to question 2. And number 2, who does Macbeth raise a toast to? Easy questions. Write those down, send them to me, and have a lovely week. I shall send the spellings, definitions, and quotes later on. Thank you.